After a series of often tense meetings, the Berkshire Town Board has approved its budget for 2025, which comes with a 19% increase to residents' property taxes. At a public meeting in October, the board stated the budget for 2025 has been compromised due to missing and incomplete records. Residents called it a budget crisis and were outraged after learning an increase in property taxes is needed to make up for gaps in the funding. The Berkshire Town Supervisor explained further the issue with the budget.
We have found that things were not put into the books correctly. Not in the right line items, not in the right spots, which led us to get reports that were incorrect.
Tonight was the deadline for the budget, with residents still feeling frustrated with the decision that was reached and how the board came to that decision.